Donna Presley sat alone in her Memphis living room. The glow from the screen painted her face in trembling light. They were showing him again, Elvis, in his white suit, smiling through the noise of Vegas, pretending the world hadn't already taken everything from him. She leaned forward, eyes glassy but sharp. And then, in that low voice she always saved for truth, she said the words that would haunt anyone listening. He deserved better. The room fell silent after she said it. You could almost hear the weight in her chest. It wasn't bitterness. It was heartbreak, the kind that doesn't scream, it sighs. Because when you love someone who belonged to everyone, you learn what loneliness really sounds like. Donna had carried that sound for decades, the sound of a man's heart breaking quietly behind applause. She had seen it all, the fame, the laughter, the crowd's roar, but she had also seen what came after the lights went out. The long nights in Graceland when Elvis would sit at the piano, shoulders slumped, humming a song he couldn't finish. The song Priscilla used to love, the one he couldn't bear to hear after she was gone. Donna said that even now, when she hears those first few notes, it still feels like someone's closing a door that should have never been opened. She used to believe love could save him, that family could fix what fame had broken. But by the end, she realized it wasn't the music, or the money, or the pressure that destroyed him. It was something quieter, more human, a betrayal dressed as love, one he never fully recovered from. There's a kind of sadness that doesn't make noise. It just lingers in the air. Donna remembers it well. The way Elvis would smile for everyone else, then stare at nothing when the laughter stopped. The way his eyes used to light up when Priscilla entered the room, and how they dimmed the moment she left it. It wasn't a fall from grace. It was a slow unraveling of a man who gave too much of himself to people who never truly saw him. When Donna talks about it now, she doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. The truth is heavy enough. He loved her, she said once, almost whispering, more than she ever understood. But love like that can destroy you if it isn't returned the same way. The betrayal she speaks of isn't about scandal. It's about spirit. The quiet kind that comes when someone you'd give your life for starts treating your heart like a souvenir. And maybe that's why Donna still breaks when she tells it, because she watched her cousin, the most famous man in the world, turn into a stranger under the weight of a love he couldn't hold on to. For years she stayed silent, out of respect, out of fear, out of loyalty to a story that was bigger than her, but the silence started to ache, because every documentary, every rumor, every interview that painted Elvis as unstable or obsessed, they left out the one thing that mattered most. He wasn't crazy, he was grieving. Donna remembers the exact night it began to show. It wasn't during a show or a fight or some dramatic scene. It was just a quiet dinner in Graceland. Elvis sat across from her, pushing food around his plate, eyes fixed on something that wasn't in the room. She asked what was wrong. He smiled that soft, weary smile and said, "She's not coming home this time, Donna." Then he got up and walked away. She heard the piano start moments later, and that was it, the beginning of the end. People think heartbreak hits like thunder, but it doesn't. It's slow, it's quiet. It walks beside you until one day you realize it's taken your place. Elvis carried that heartbreak like a shadow everywhere, even into the spotlight. Donna said he never stopped performing, he just stopped believing. When she finally decided to speak about it, she didn't do it for attention. She did it because the story had been twisted too long, because every headline made Priscilla look like the survivor and Elvis the tragedy. But to Donna, the real tragedy was that no one saw how hard he fought to stay kind, gentle, and faithful, even as his world kept shrinking. He forgave her, Donna said once, but he never forgave himself for letting her go. Those words cut deep because they weren't poetic, they were true. Elvis believed in forgiveness more than fame. He just didn't know how to extend it inward. Sometimes in interviews, Donna's voice would crack when she talked about the early days, before Vegas, before Hollywood, before the myth took over the man. Back when Elvis was just a southern boy with a guitar and a dream, chasing music that made people feel alive. He used to bring Priscilla around, proud and protective. Donna thought they were unbreakable, but love built on distance and pressure rarely survives the storm of fame. What made it worse was how the world kept watching. Every magazine, every camera, every fan wanted to believe in the fairy tale, Elvis and Priscilla, the perfect couple, but Donna saw the truth behind the photographs. The forced smiles, the loneliness hiding in plain sight. She saw him reach out for affection and receive silence. She saw him write songs for her and never send them. She saw the legend everyone adored crumble behind closed doors where only family was allowed to see. She said there was one night she'll never forget. Elvis had just finished a show, exhausted, drenched in sweat. He sat in his dressing room, staring at the mirror. The lights around it buzzed softly. He looked at his own reflection and said, "You ever love someone so much you start to disappear?" Donna didn't know how to answer. He just smiled, a sad little half-smile, and whispered, "That's what love does to fools like me." The first time Donna heard about Priscilla's betrayal, she didn't believe it. Not because she thought Priscilla was perfect, but because she couldn't imagine anyone hurting Elvis that way. But the truth came anyway, quiet, undeniable, and devastating. It wasn't just what Priscilla did. It was how she did it, how she moved on while he was still holding on, how she found peace in the same world that was killing him. When Donna tells it now, she doesn't use harsh words. She doesn't need to. Her sadness speaks louder than anger ever could. She broke him without meaning to, she said. And maybe that's the worst kind of breaking, the kind you don't even notice until there's nothing left. Every time the story resurfaces, people ask why it still hurts her so much. She says it's because Elvis wasn't just family. He was proof that love and pain can live in the same body, that you can give the world everything and still lose yourself to one person's indifference. Donna often pauses before finishing her thoughts, as if searching for words strong enough to carry what she's seen. "He used to talk about her like she was a dream he couldn't wake up from," she said once. Even when she was gone, he was still chasing her shadow. There's a line she never forgets, something Elvis told her late one night on the phone. He said, "You ever notice how the songs sound sadder when you know who they're really about?" Donna didn't answer. She didn't need to, because by then, they both knew his songs weren't just music anymore. They were confessions set to melody. When people ask her why she calls it betrayal, she says it's because Elvis never played games with love. He was all in, all the time. That kind of love makes you vulnerable, it leaves no armor. And when Priscilla walked away, it wasn't just a breakup. It was an unraveling of everything he believed about loyalty, trust, and family. Donna watched him try to rebuild himself after she left. New tour, new routines, new faces, but nothing filled the silence. Even the laughter felt thinner, the jokes shorter. He started saying things like, "Ain't nobody left to come home to." And every time she heard that, it broke her a little more. She said the last time she saw him truly happy was when he was holding Lisa Marie. There was a peace in his eyes then, a small flicker of the man he used to be. But even that joy carried an ache. Because every time he looked at his daughter, he saw the woman who wasn't there to share it with him. Donna has tried for years to explain what that did to him. "It's like watching a fire burn itself out," she said. "He didn't die when his heart stopped. He died when he stopped believing love could save him." That's the part most people don't understand. Elvis wasn't destroyed by fame. He was destroyed by faith, the faith that love could heal anything. When that faith broke, the rest followed. Even now, decades later, when Donna walks through Graceland, she swears she can feel him there. Not the performer, the man, the one who used to sit at the piano at 3 a.m. whispering lyrics no one else would ever hear. She says the house still hums with his music, soft, low, eternal, a love song that never really ended. She knows people will argue with her version of the story. Some will say Priscilla had her reasons, that she was young, that she needed freedom. And maybe that's true, but Donna's voice tightens every time she answers that question. Freedom, she says, shouldn't come at the cost of someone else's soul. In the years after his death, the world turned their love story into legend, tragic, glamorous, cinematic. But to Donna, it was simpler and sadder. He just wanted to be loved, she said. Not worshipped, not followed, just loved. Sometimes when she visits the garden where he's buried, she brings flowers and sits quietly, talking to him under her breath. She tells him about the fans, the tour, the legacy, but she always ends with the same line, "I wish you known how many people still love you." Then she wipes her eyes, looks toward the mansion, and whispers, "You deserved better." There's a pause that always follows those words, as if the air itself refuses to move, because deep down, everyone who hears her knows she's right. Elvis Presley gave the world his voice, his heart, his everything, and in return, the world gave him fame, but not peace. Donna still carries that truth like a secret melody. It plays softly when she talks about him, when she sees his face on old posters, when she hears his music on the radio. It's a tune that reminds her love can be both a blessing and a wound. And maybe that's why her words still echo all these years later, because behind every myth, there's a heartbeat. Behind every legend, a man who just wanted to be loved back the way he loved first. He never got that chance, but through Donna's trembling voice, through her tears, her memories, her truth, we finally hear the story he never could tell. He deserved better. He always did. Before fame built walls around them, Graceland was still just a home. The air smelled like biscuits and coffee in the mornings, and laughter echoed down the halls. Donna Presley remembers those early days the way people remember sunlight after a long winter, warm, familiar, gone too soon. Elvis was the king back then. He was just family. Funny, generous, barefoot more often than not. He'd walk into the kitchen, grab a piece of pie before dinner, and wink at her like a mischievous brother. She swears that was the version of him the world never really met, the one who loved harder than he should, and trusted even when he shouldn't have. When Priscilla came into the picture, the air changed. Not in a bad way at first, just different. She was quiet, graceful, like someone from another world. Everyone noticed how he looked at her, how he'd softened just seeing her walk through a room. Donna thought it was sweet, pure. Elvis had always been surrounded by noise, fans screaming, flashes popping, men talking money, but Priscilla made him still. It was like she gave him silence, and that silence made him believe he could finally breathe. But love that deep comes with a price, because when you build your peace around one person, all it takes is for them to step away for you to lose it. Donna didn't see it coming, not at first. She thought they were perfect, until the smiles started to change. The fights never began as fights. They began as silences. Priscilla's eyes would wander, Elvis's jokes would land flat. Donna would sit at the table, pretending not to notice, but she noticed everything. The way he'd reach for Priscilla's hand and she'd pull away. The way he'd talk about the future and she'd look toward the door. Little things, like ghosts whispering warnings no one wanted to hear. Elvis started staying up later. The music room light would glow until morning. Donna would pass by on her way to bed and hear him playing soft, unfinished songs. Not the ones he sang on stage, these were slower, heavier, private. Songs no one was meant to hear. One night she knocked, half asleep, and asked if he was okay. He smiled through the piano's reflection and said, "You ever try to sing the truth and realize you don't know the words?" She didn't know what to say. She just told him to get some rest. He nodded, but he didn't. Something fragile was breaking between them, not just a marriage, but a belief. Elvis had always believed that love could fix anything. He believed it when he sang, when he prayed, when he gave away his last dollar to someone in need. But Priscilla wasn't a song he could save. She was her own melody, and it was starting to drift away from his. Donna remembers when the distance turned into walls. Family gatherings grew quieter. Priscilla spent more time in California, more time with new faces, less time inside the golden cage of Graceland. Elvis told everyone he was fine. He'd make jokes, host dinners, smile for pictures. But when Donna looked into his eyes, she saw it, the same look their grandmother had after burying her husband. That hollow kind of grief that doesn't come from losing someone, but from knowing you're about to. It was hard for Donna to admit, even years later, but she began to resent Priscilla. Not because she was cruel, but because she seemed distant, like she was already halfway gone, even when she was right there. Elvis noticed it too, though he'd never say it out loud. He'd just stare out the window and hum that same slow tune, the one Priscilla used to love. He once told Donna, "I built this place for her, but now it feels like she's the one who built it around me." The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Graceland, a dream built out of love, had become his prison. People on the outside thought the Presleys lived in a fairy tale. They saw the photos, the mansion, the fame, the baby, the fortune. They didn't see the nights when Elvis would sit in the dark, reading old letters, replaying moments like scratched records. They didn't see Donna standing outside the door, hearing him whisper her name. They didn't see the way love, when cracked just slightly, starts to echo until it sounds like madness. She tried to talk to him once, really talk, told him maybe he needed to take a break, clear his head. He smiled, That kind of smile that breaks your heart because it's hiding 1,000 pieces behind it. Breaks don't fix what's already gone, Donna, he said. They just make you notice it more. The world was watching Elvis Presley, but Donna was watching the man. And what she saw was someone trying to keep the light on while the bulb was burning out. When Priscilla started traveling more, the calls home grew shorter. At first, Elvis would wait by the phone, holding it like a lifeline. Later, he stopped waiting altogether. If she wants to talk, she'll call, he'd say, pretending it didn't matter. But Donna could see it did. Every silence from Priscilla was another bruise he hid behind music. One evening, Donna walked in on him packing the den, clutching a letter. His face was pale, almost ghostly. "She's been gone a while," he said, voice shaking, "but now I'm startin' to think she ain't comin' back the same." He folded the letter carefully, almost reverently, and tucked it into his jacket pocket. Then he went upstairs and shut the door. That was the night Donna started to worry for real. The next few months were a blur. Elvis poured everything into his shows, bigger sets, longer nights, louder applause. He told his team he wanted to remind the world who he was, but Donna knew better. He wasn't performing for the world. He was performing for her, for the one woman who wasn't there to see it. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, Donna would wake to the sound of the phone ringing. It would stop after 1 or 2 rings, and then she'd hear his footsteps. Slow, heavy, down the hall. He'd go into the music room, sit at the piano, and play until dawn. Always the same song. Always that slow, aching rhythm. She didn't need to ask which one. There were moments when Donna tried to convince herself it would get better, that they just needed time. But the air in Graceland felt different now, heavier, colder. Even the staff spoke in whispers. Everyone tiptoed around him, afraid of breaking what little peace he had left. And then came the rumors, the magazines, the whispers about Priscilla's new friends, her nights out, her laughter captured on camera without him. Elvis pretended not to see it, but Donna did. She'd find the papers folded neatly in the trash, headlines circled in pen. He'd never mention them, but he didn't need to. The silence said enough. There was one afternoon that still plays in her mind. Elvis was sitting on the porch, sunglasses on, staring at the front gate where fans pressed their faces against the bars. Donna brought him lemonade, like she used to when they were kids. He took a sip and said softly, "They love me, but they don't know me. She knew me, that's the difference." The sun hit his face just right, and for a moment she saw the boy again, the one who sang in church, who believed the world could be good. Then he looked away, and that boy vanished. By late 1971, the cracks had become canyons. Priscilla was living her own life in California, and Elvis was drowning in a sea of noise, fans, friends, pills, expectations. Donna tried to pull him out, but he'd smile and tell her he was fine. "You can't save someone who ain't ready," he'd say, and maybe he was right. The tension between the family and Priscilla grew quietly but dangerously. Donna once confronted her at a small gathering in Memphis. The air was thick with politeness, but the undertone was sharp. She asked if Priscilla was happy. Priscilla looked at her for a long time before saying, "I'm just trying to find myself." Donna didn't answer, but in her heart she thought, "You'll find yourself standing on the ashes of what you left behind." She didn't mean to be cruel, just honest, because she could see what Priscilla couldn't. Elvis wasn't built for losing. He was built for giving, for holding, for believing too much. When the separation became public, the tabloids went wild. But inside Graceland, everything went still. Donna said it felt like the walls stopped breathing. Even the music seemed quieter. He would still go through the motions, record, rehearse, smile, but it wasn't the same. It was like watching a candle burn at both ends. She started noticing strange things, him canceling plans, locking himself in his room for hours, talking to no one. The staff whispered about pills, about long drives in the middle of the night. Donna didn't care about the gossip. She cared about the man behind it. The cousin she'd grown up with, the boy who used to chase fireflies in the yard, and now he looked like a ghost wearing his own face. One night after a concert, Donna found him sitting alone backstage. Sweat soaked through his jumpsuit. His hands trembled as he held a photograph of Priscilla and Lisa Marie. He looked up and said, "She ain't comin' back, is she?" Donna couldn't lie. She just shook her head. He nodded slowly, staring at the picture like it might change if he looked long enough. "Then I guess I'll just keep singing till I forget the sound of her voice." She didn't know what to say. How do you tell someone that the thing they love most is also the thing that's killing them? The months that followed were darker. He stopped writing letters, stopped calling. The only words he seemed to believe in anymore were the ones he could sing, and even those started to sound like prayers instead of songs. Donna says there was one final moment when she knew the love was gone for good. Elvis came down to breakfast one morning, humming the tune that used to be Priscilla's favorite, but instead of sadness, there was something else in his voice, emptiness. When she asked what he was humming, he smiled faintly. Just a song for someone who ain't listening. Then he left the table and never mentioned her again. But Donna could tell, every silence, every sigh, every sleepless night was still haunted by her name. And though he never said it out loud, the pain spoke for him. Because even after everything, even after the headlines, the heartbreak, the betrayal he couldn't undo, Elvis still loved her. And maybe that was the cruelest part of all, that no matter how deep the wound, he couldn't stop bleeding for her. It was past midnight when the phone rang. Donna still remembers that sound, sharp, lonely, cutting through the silence of Graceland like a siren. Elvis never called that late unless something was wrong. She picked up, expecting one of his jokes, maybe another restless story from the road. But what she heard was different. His voice was soft, almost hollow. "She's gone, Donna," he said. Then a pause so long she thought the line had dropped. And she didn't go alone. Those 6 words hung in the air like smoke. Donna didn't ask who he meant. She already knew. She could hear it in his breathing, that kind of quiet that only comes when a man's heart breaks in real time. She wanted to say something, to tell him it would be all right, but nothing came. He wasn't looking for comfort. He was just trying to say it out loud, to make it real enough to survive. She found him the next morning, sitting at the piano in his robe. The curtains were still drawn. The air smelled like stale coffee and rain. His hands hovered over the keys but didn't move. Donna stood in the doorway for a long time before speaking. "You don't have to talk about it," she said gently. He nodded, eyes fixed on the ivory. "That's good," he whispered, "'cause I don't think I can." He looked older that day, not in his face, but in his spirit, like the weight of what he'd lost was pressing down from the inside. And still, he tried to smile. "You know what's funny?" he said. "I thought the worst part of losing her would be being alone. Turns out, the worst part's realizing she was already gone before she left." Donna wanted to hate Priscilla in that moment. She wanted to scream about how unfair it was, how Elvis had built his world around her only to watch her walk away. But when she looked at him, the way his shoulders slumped, the way his voice cracked when he said her name, she couldn't. There was no room for hate, only heartbreak. That week, Graceland felt heavier. Even the air moved slower. The staff walked quieter, afraid to disturb the silence that had settled over the house. Elvis spent most of his days in the music room. The same song on repeat, "Can't Help Falling in Love." Sometimes he sang along, sometimes he didn't. But every time the melody reached the line, "Take my hand," his voice would falter. Donna said it was like watching a prayer dissolve halfway to heaven. One evening she brought him dinner. The tray sat untouched. He was staring out the window, a cigarette burning down between his fingers. "She's happy," he said suddenly, without turning around. Donna frowned. "How do you know?" He smiled faintly. "A man knows when the woman he loves stops hurting. You can feel it, like the world just got colder." He started avoiding people after that. Cancelled meetings, skipped studio sessions. Friends would come by and leave just as fast, shaking their heads. "He's not himself," they'd whisper, but Donna knew better. He was exactly himself, the version no one ever saw, the version that bled quietly without a stage or spotlight. A few days later, she found him scribbling on a notepad at the kitchen counter. The handwriting was uneven, the lines trembling. When she asked what he was working on, he said, "Something I should have said a long time ago." Those words turned into "Always on my mind," a confession wrapped in melody. But when it was finished, he told the engineer not to send it to anyone. "If she hears it," he said, "she'll know I'm sorry, and I ain't ready to say I'm sorry yet." That was Elvis, pride and pain tied together in one fragile body. He didn't know how to let go, but he also didn't know how to hold on. Donna sat with him that night, listening as he hummed the tune under his breath. "You think she'll ever forgive me?" he asked. Donna hesitated. "For what?" He smiled, "the kind that broke your heart to see, for not being enough." The next few months felt like watching a man walk through fog. He performed when he had to, smiled for the cameras, but his eyes were always somewhere else. Donna said it was like he was haunted by someone still living, and maybe that's the cruelest kind of ghost, the one who's still breathing, just not for you. Then came the night everything cracked. It was in Las Vegas, during a residency that had already worn him thin. The band started their usual warm-up, brass, strings, the steady rhythm of the crowd outside. But this night something changed. The pianist, a new kid who didn't know the history, began to play a slower version of Can't Help Falling in Love, Priscilla's version, the one she used to hum around the house. Donna wasn't there, but she heard every detail from the ones who were. Elvis froze, hand gripping the microphone, breath caught halfway in his chest. The band stopped, confused. The audience waited, thinking it was part of the act, but Elvis just stood there staring into the lights like he'd seen a ghost. Someone whispered, "Play on," but no one dared. After a full minute of silence, he lowered the mic and whispered something almost no one caught. "She's here tonight." When Donna got the call later, she didn't ask what happened. She already knew. That song had been his tether, his one connection to her, and hearing it like that, unexpected, raw, must have ripped the wound wide open. He finished the show barely, then went straight to his suite, locked the door, and didn't speak for hours. They said when he finally did, his first words weren't about the crowd or the show. He just said, "Tell them not to play that version again." And then, softer, "I can't finish it." The next day he called Donna. His voice was rough, like gravel soaked in rain. "You ever think a song can kill you?" he asked. She didn't know how to answer. "Only if you let it," she said finally. He laughed once, that deep, broken kind of laugh that doesn't sound like laughter at all. "Then this one's tryin'." Donna drove to see him a few days later. When she arrived, he looked worse, pale, tired, like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. But his eyes, for a brief moment, were clear. "You know," he said, "I used to think I could sing her back to me. Now I just sing so I don't forget how she sounded." He handed Donna a folded letter. The paper was creased, worn at the edges. "If anything happens to me," he said, "make sure Lisa gets this." She asked what it was. He shook his head. "Just a father tellin' his little girl how much he loved her mama." Donna tried to convince him to rest, to take a break. But Elvis was a man who only knew how to give, even when there was nothing left to give. He went back to the stage, night after night, singing songs that hurt him more than the pills ever could. Then something shifted. Donna noticed it in his voice first, a kind of calm acceptance that hadn't been there before. He still sang Can't Help Falling in Love every night, but slower now, more tender, as if he wasn't performing anymore, as if he was finally saying goodbye. One evening after a show, he called her again. "I saw her today," he said quietly. "She came by to talk about Lisa." Donna froze, and, Elvis hesitated, "She's happy, she looks peaceful." A pause. "That's what hurts." Donna asked if he said what he needed to say. He laughed softly. "I told her I still play her song. She told me I should move on." Another pause. "But I can't move on from music that never stops playing." After that meeting, Donna said something in him began to fade, not in despair, but in surrender. Like a man finally setting down the weight he'd carried too long. He still performed, still smiled, but it was gentler, quieter, almost peaceful. The world thought he was getting better, but Donna knew better. Sometimes healing doesn't mean getting stronger, it just means learning how to live with the ache. A few weeks later, she visited him again. They sat in the den, just like they used to, the house still and dim around them. He looked over at the piano and said, "You know, Donna, I finally figured it out." She asked, "What?" "Love ain't about keeping someone," he said. "It's about letting them go and still mean every word you sang to em." That was the last time she heard him speak about Priscilla, with peace in his voice. When the news came the following year that he was gone, Donna didn't cry right away. She just sat there, staring at the wall, remembering every quiet night, every whispered song, every unfinished sentence. When she finally did cry, it wasn't for the legend. It was for the cousin who died with a song still stuck in his throat. At his funeral, the air was heavy still. Donna stood beside Priscilla in silence. When the organ began to play, her knees almost gave out. It was Can't Help Falling in Love, but not the fast version, the slow one, the version she'd once danced to in Graceland's den, barefoot and laughing. Donna covered her mouth and whispered, "He did it. He finished the song." Later, someone found an old tape in his dressing room, a private recording labeled simply Scylla's version. On it, Elvis's voice was thin, tired, but pure. He sang the song one final time, whispering at the end, "This one's for you." Donna listened to it once, then never again. Years later, when people asked her why she chose to speak out, she said, "Because everyone talks about how he died. I want them to remember how he loved." She'd pause, then add quietly, "He forgave her. Maybe that's what saved him in the end." The story doesn't end in tragedy, not really. Because even though Elvis never got to say everything he wanted, he left the truth behind in his music, his letters, his silence. And Donna carries that truth still, that love, no matter how it breaks you, is always worth it. Every time she visits his grave, she brings a small music box that plays that same song. She winds it slowly, lets the melody drift through the air, and whispers, "You finished it, Elvis. You finally finished it." And maybe, somewhere beyond the noise, he's still singing, not for fame, not for forgiveness, but for love. Because even after all the pain, all the heartbreak, all the silence, the song never really ended. It just waited for someone to hear it again. When the world mourned Elvis, it did what it always does with legends. It turned him into a story too big for truth to survive. The man disappeared, and the myth took his place. But for Donna, it never worked that way. She didn't see a king in gold or a saint in sequins. She saw a man who once sat barefoot at a piano in Graceland, chasing forgiveness in a song. And that's the version she never let go of. Every August, as the heat pressed down over Memphis, fans flooded the gates with flowers, candles, and photographs. The crowd sang softly, "Take my hand, take my whole life too," their voices blending into something holy. But Donna never joined the singing. She stood off to the side, eyes distant, whispering the words instead. For her, it wasn't a performance. It was a promise kept. Years later, she said that every time she walked through Graceland, she could still feel him there. Not the performer, the cousin, the brother figure, the one who'd sneak biscuits off her plate when no one was looking. "The house still hums," she'd say, "like the walls remember." And maybe they did. Maybe the walls remembered the nights of laughter, the fights, the quiet piano keys echoing through the halls long after midnight. People asked Donna why she kept telling his story, why she kept reopening wounds that never fully healed. Her answer was always the same, because people forget the cost of being loved by the world. She'd pause then, her eyes turning glassy. "He gave everything, his heart, his peace, his truth, and all the world saw was the shine. I just want them to see the man who paid for it." Sometimes she'd talk about his gentleness, how he'd give away cars, jewelry, anything to make people smile. But underneath all that generosity was a quiet ache. Elvis needed to give because it was the only way he knew to feel loved. He couldn't say no, Donna once said. Every gift was a piece of him he couldn't keep. After he died, Donna would get letters from strangers, people who'd met him once, or not at all, but swore he'd changed their lives. "He looked me in the eye," they'd write, "and I felt like he actually saw me." Donna would fold each letter carefully, keep them in a box marked for him. She said it made her feel like he was still here, still reaching people the way he always wanted to, through kindness, through music, through the raw honesty that made him human. But as the years passed, the headlines came back, the drugs, the weight, the exhaustion. Everyone wanted to explain his fall. Few cared to understand it. Donna hated the way people talked about him like a tragedy they'd paid to watch. "They forget," she'd say, "he wasn't destroyed by fame. He was destroyed by heartbreak, by loving too deeply, too openly." She didn't mean just Priscilla. She meant the world too. He loved it all, his fans, his friends, even the ones who used him. He gave them everything and asked for nothing but honesty in return. And when that honesty didn't come, he just kept singing, hoping someone would finally hear the truth buried between the lines. One evening, decades after his death, Donna stood in the meditation garden at Graceland. The sun was setting, and the marble headstone glowed in the fading light. A fan nearby was crying softly, whispering, "I wish I'd known him." Donna turned, smiled sadly, and said, "You do. You've been singing his heart for 50 years. The fan didn't understand what she meant, not fully. But that's all right. Most people never did. In her later interviews, Donna's tone changed, softer, more reflective. She stopped talking about the betrayal and started talking about grace. He forgave her, she said, long before the world ever forgave him, and maybe that's what made him who he was. That idea, forgiveness as legacy, stayed with her. She believed that if people remembered anything about Elvis, it shouldn't be the gold records or the movies. It should be the way he loved without armor, the way he kept singing for someone who stopped listening, the way he turned pain into beauty. When Lisa Marie grew older, Donna would tell her stories, not the kind you find in documentaries, real stories. The time Elvis drove across town just to give a stranger his coat. The night he stayed up till dawn fixing a broken toy for Lisa, even though he had a show the next day. The morning he cried in the kitchen because a letter from a fan reminded him of his own mother. Lisa would laugh, then cry, then ask why he was always giving away pieces of himself. And Donna would say, because he thought love worked that way, the more you gave, the longer it lasted. It didn't, of course, but maybe that's why his music still feels alive, because it wasn't built to be perfect. It was built to be honest. Every lyric, every crack in his voice carried a lifetime of longing. Even now, if you listen closely to his later songs, really listen, you can hear him talking to someone who isn't there. Not just Priscilla, but anyone who's ever walked away. It's the sound of a man forgiving the world for breaking him. Sometimes Donna would say that Elvis didn't die the day his heart stopped. He died the moment the music became an escape instead of a joy. And yet, even after death, the music found a way to bring him peace. That's the irony, she'd say. The thing that killed him also saved him. In the decades since, the legend has grown louder, the tour, the tributes, the holograms. But Donna's voice has always been quieter, more sacred. She says she doesn't care if people call him the king. She just wants them to remember the boy who prayed before every show, the man who wrote letters he never sent, the cousin who called her when the world got too heavy. There's a story she tells only rarely, one she kept to herself for years. The day after the funeral, she found an unopened envelope on the piano at Graceland. No address, no stamp, just a few words scrawled on the front, for Scylla when the music stops. Inside was a single line written in shaky handwriting, "If I ever learn to stop loving you, that's when I'll finally rest." Donna folded it back up and tucked it under a framed photo of the two of them. She never told Priscilla. Some things, she said softly, aren't meant to be forgiven out loud. Today, when fans walk through Graceland, they see the glitter, the costumes, the Cadillac shine of an era that never really ended. But Donna sees something else. She sees a man who gave everything he had to the people he loved, and somehow, even in losing everything, managed to leave behind more love than he ever received. And that, she says, is the real legacy. Not the fame, not the crown, but the music that outlived the pain, the proof that even a broken heart can still sing. When people ask her if she ever found peace after all these years, she smiles faintly. "Peace," she repeats. "No, but I found purpose. That's close enough." Because keeping his story alive isn't about reopening wounds. It's about reminding the world that love, in all its messy, imperfect glory, is still worth it. And maybe that's the lesson Elvis left behind, that even if love destroys you, it's better than never having felt it at all. Every note he ever sang carried that message. Every tear Donna ever shed carried it too. And maybe, somewhere, if the world listens long enough, they'll finally hear what he was trying to say all along, that forgiveness is just another name for love that refused to die. Donna Presley never liked goodbyes. Maybe that's why even now she talks about Elvis as if he's still here, just upstairs, writing a song, waiting for the right moment to walk back down. She says you can't truly lose someone who loved that deeply. They don't vanish, they echo. And sometimes, on quiet nights, she swears she can still hear him, that faint, slow melody floating through Graceland's halls like a ghost that never learned to rest. Visitors come and go, their footsteps soft against the marble floors, their whispers mixing with the hum of distant speakers playing Can't Help Falling in Love. They stop to take photos, to cry, to pray, but Donna doesn't need to do any of that. She lived the story everyone else came to imagine. She's touched the grief, the grace, the pieces of the man behind the myth. When she stands near his grave, she doesn't speak for long. She just whispers, "You did good, cuz you finally found your peace." And for a moment, you can almost believe she's right, that somewhere beyond all this noise, Elvis is still singing, still forgiving, still loving. The world will always argue about who he was, the king, the icon, the tragedy, but Donna doesn't argue anymore. She says the truth doesn't need defending, it just needs remembering. He wasn't perfect, she says, but he was real, and real lasts longer than perfect ever will. That's what keeps her going, the belief that telling his story isn't about protecting a legend. It's about protecting a soul, because the man she knew wasn't made of gold or glitter. He was made of prayers, promises, and the unshakable hope that love, no matter how it ends, still means something. Sometimes after interviews, she'll sit alone in the same den where Elvis once played his songs. The piano lid stays closed now, but her eyes stay fixed on it, like she's waiting for the first note to rise again. She'll say quietly, "He died trying to love right." Then she'll smile, wipe her tears, and add, "I think that counts for something." And maybe it does. Maybe it counts for everything. Because in the end, every story about Elvis Presley, the fame, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the forgiveness, comes back to one truth. He never stopped loving, not Priscilla, not Lisa, not the fans who still light candles outside his gate. That love is what built Graceland, what filled the songs, what outlived the sorrow. Donna once said that grief doesn't end, it just changes shape. It becomes music. And that's what Elvis left behind, a melody that keeps reminding people what it means to feel. If you listen close, you can still hear it. Not just in the recordings, but in every person who's ever played his songs at a wedding, or cried to them after losing someone, or danced barefoot to them in the kitchen, smiling through tears. That's how love survives, by finding new voices to sing through. And maybe that's why Donna finally decided to tell this story, not to reopen old wounds, but to show that even when life takes everything from you, the fame, the peace, the person you love, it can never take the meaning behind what you gave. Elvis gave love, unfiltered, unfinished, unforgettable. She says the hardest thing she's ever done is forgive Priscilla, but she did, not for Priscilla's sake, for his, because she believes forgiveness is the only way to keep his heart alive. If he could do it, she says softly, then so can I. So now, when people ask her what Elvis would want them to remember, she doesn't talk about the stage or the songs. She just says, he wanted people to believe in love again. And maybe that's why the world still can't let him go. If you've made it this far, if you've listened, felt, maybe even cried, then you already understand what Donna's been trying to say all along. The legend was never about the crown. It was about the man who wore it, and the love he carried even when it broke him. So tonight, when the lights dim and the music fades, take a moment, close your eyes, think of Elvis not as the star, but as the man whispering, "This one's for you." Think of Donna still standing by his memory, still telling his truth. And think of yourself, of every person you've ever loved, lost, or forgiven. Because in the end, every story like this becomes personal. Every song becomes ours. If this story moved you, keep it alive, share it. Subscribe for the next untold chapter, the ones history forgot but hearts remember. Stories of love, loss, and the people who refused to let the music die. And maybe, just maybe, the next time you hear that familiar melody, the slow one, the one she loved, you'll remember him not for how he died, but for how he loved. The king may be gone, but love never leaves.